special treat now as Steve Alliquette and I are joined by Rangers coach David Quinn, and you can call me Petey all you want through this segment.
I was pulling that out of the holster right out of the gate, so you beat me to it.
Can I call you Quinny?
Absolutely.
So we are obviously in uncharted territory. Best to you, best to your family and your friends. How are you spending your time during this period?
Well, believe it or not, we stay somewhat busy. Obviously not as busy as we normally would be under different circumstances, but you want to take this time to, stay active, and just in case something does happen sooner than later from a coaching standpoint, between myself and Lindy Ruff and David Oliver and Greg Brown, we're doing some projects, trying to dig a little bit deeper, see if we can come up with something that might help us when we do get started. But it has been a trying time, and, obviously hockey's on the back burner for everybody. And the key to everybody is everybody staying safe and doing their part so we can get through this.
Quinny, when I was playing, I always felt like before a coach told me what he knew about hockey, I wanted to know that he cared about me. And I thought that's the impression I got right away from you, and that's why you have a bond with the players. How are you staying in touch and letting everybody know you care at difficult times?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Steve, because it is, I think that's one of the benefits of coaching college. And I've always said this, I think college coaching is a great training ground for the NHL. And regardless of what you do in life, we're human beings first and foremost. And, you want someone to care about you. You want someone to have your best interest in heart. And, we're very fortunate to have the staff we have between Lindy Ruff and David Oliver and Greg Brown. And, it starts at the top, too, with Mr. Dolan and JD and, Gortz and Chris Drury. But we're in constant contact with the players, calling them, probably try to reach out to 2 or 3 guys daily just to check in, see how they're doing, talk a little bit of hockey, but mostly talk about their families and making sure everybody's safe. And, 2 things about coaching: you got to care about people before they can trust you. And I think that's a pivotal part of any successful leader.
Coach, I'm sure you spent some time reviewing what's happened so far. 70 games in, incredible improvement, great development with the young guys, breakout years from Panarin and Mika Zibanejad. What would you say in summation to this point, 70 games in? Maybe you play some more, maybe you don't, but I'm sure you've thought a lot about it. What's some of your conclusions?
Well, I really thought we did a great job as a group, and I've said this a lot, acquiring the characteristics you're going to need to have a successful team. And, you have to have talent. You don't need to have the most talent, but you have to have enough talent. And then throughout the process, especially in our situation where we had so many new faces, so much uncertainty when the season started, I thought early on in the season there was a lot of question marks, within the locker room, wondering how good we could be, guys wondering where they would fit in. And I thought as the season was going on, we were acquiring the characteristics you're going to need to have a successful season. I really thought, there was an opportunity for us throughout the early part of the season to become a true team. And just because you're in the same jersey doesn't mean you're a teammate or mean you're on the same team. And what I thought our guys did a great job was acquiring those characteristics, from a work ethic to a care factor to, they became resilient. There was a trust factor within the locker room within each other. And you could see the benefits of all that as the second half unfolded.
This is something you wouldn't say yourself, Quinny, but I could say it. You probably would have got Coach of the Year if the team got in the playoffs. You were out by 2 points with 12 games to go. It was the biggest story in the NHL. Now, you had to do that, though, with 3 goalies. So this couldn't have been easy. So under those circumstances, your job made even harder. How was the communication? Was it game by game, or was it, I want the best guy in the net to win? You had 3 great options. How did you handle it?
Well, when it was funny, when we did call Igor up, obviously that was big news. And, he forced our hand in a lot of ways. This wasn't a guy who just came over and was a good American League goalie. He went down there and was clearly the best goalie in the American Hockey League, and, bided his time. And this wasn't a guy who'd played 2 years of college and, signed, or 3 years in major junior. This was a guy who had proven it at a very high level, a 24-year-old pro. And I give him a ton of credit for coming over and just going down to Hartford, and all he did was stop pucks. And, when we called him up, we knew it was going to be a delicate situation when you have 3 goalies, regardless of what their backgrounds and pedigrees are. And it wasn't constant communication, but there was certainly clarity. I would talk with Hank and Georgie and Igor and kind of lay it out early. And then I just thought, after about 3.5 weeks to a month, that Georgie had kind of grabbed the job at that particular time, and he became the guy we're going to start to lean on. And I certainly told that to Hank and Georgie. We talked about that. And, it was we were very fortunate with Georgie and Hank and even Igor. I mean, they all handled it as well as you possibly could. And, there's no blueprint on how to handle a situation like that. It's an evolving situation daily. You got to manage emotions, you got to manage feelings. And, Benny did a really good job with that as well. And, I give everybody involved an awful lot of credit because it could have been a real difficult situation and it wasn't.
Absolutely. And then another guy that probably deserves a lot of credit this season is Artemi Panarin. I remember this from, again, being a player where if your top players are lazy and don't check, you're doomed. Your top guys are your hardest workers. Is that just good fortune, or is that, again,
that's good fortune
that's been created?
It's good fortune. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, this guy's had a lot of success in this league, and he comes here under an enormous amount of pressure. And I thought early on he was putting too much pressure on himself to really just focus on the points. And he and I had conversations about that. And, and I've said this a lot, when you have Mika Zibanejad and Artemi Panarin, your two best players, have their work ethic, have the ability to be great teammates and be the people they are, your organization has a great chance to be successful. And, you can't underestimate that.
Coach, you just mentioned Mika Zibanejad. Coming up later on the network, our classic games. We're going to show Mika's 5-goal game against the Caps back in March, tying the Rangers' single-season record for most goals scored in a game. He took the next step from really good player to elite. How was he able to do it this year?
Well, first of all, he's got that type of talent, and not just the physical talent. He's got the mental talent, too. This guy is so smart on the ice, puts in the effort off the ice, always wants to get better. And, it's just the evolution of a player. He's in that prime. He's in the sweet spot of his career right now where he's turning 27 today, actually. You might have to call him and wish him a happy birthday. But he's just got all the characteristics you need. And then, he's a great example of what can happen in patience in young players. I mean, he went through 3 years in Ottawa where there was a frustration level with him from a conditioning standpoint or a work ethic standpoint or things of that nature. And he just, actually, Mika and I were talking about the last time we spoke. I mean, when you're the best player growing up at every level, you probably don't have to put in the effort that you really should. You just happen to be the best player. And I think, we all have to keep that in mind when, you're in the situation we're in, or regardless of the situation, when you're calling up young players, there's a learning curve. And the number one learning curve is how do you define hard work? And a lot of guys have to change what their definition of hard work is when they get to this level. And I think Mika's done that. And when you add that element to the talent level and to his brain and to the type of teammate he is, you get a special player.
Coach, you have so much young talent, not only on your roster, but throughout the organization. Is there one young player this year that surprised you the most?
I don't know if there was one. I mentioned a few guys the other day when I did something for the organization. You talk about Adam Fox and how easy he made the transition to the NHL look. And, I knew he was a really good player. We all knew what he was going to bring from an offensive standpoint. But the thing that really surprised me was his defensive play and what a great defenseman what a better defender he was than I thought he was going to be to start his career. And he did a really good job defensively. Ryan Lindgren really had a good season and, had a good training camp, got sent down to Hartford. And, again, another guy just went down there and played well and didn't sulk and put himself in a position to get called up and, took advantage of his opportunity. And, Phil Hedl made a great jump. And Tony DeAngelo made a great jump. And we were very, very fortunate that all these guys kind of made the jump that we anticipated them making and having the 6 seasons they were going to have, which put us in the situation we're in when this thing stopped.
Coach, we can't thank you enough for your time. Best to you and your family, your friends, and the entire organization as we get through this process. Thank you so much for joining us.
All right. Thanks, Bill and Steve. Take care. Stay safe.